And welcome back. It is Ray Michaels here with Total News Nation and Grassroots 50. I'm here with Steve Slepcevic.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
I'll tell you what. Do you prefer Steve? Steven?
Just Steve is fine.
Steve is good. Steve, you're going to be very interested in this interview in particular because Steve is one of the first responders that is there. You have a tragedy. His company is there. Kind of an alternative or a parallel to what FEMA does, but your guys are highly skilled, highly trained. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions about some things. But first, a little bit about you. How'd you get into this?
Well, I was that kid that was actually always fascinated with disasters, right? My whole family was a family of developers, hardworking Serbian people from the old country. I was the first one born in the States. And if there was a problem, you fixed it. You didn't complain about it. You took accountability for it and you fixed it. If you have the tools, you made shift tools.
Yeah, and you didn't point to somebody else to do it.
No.
You took the initiative.
Yeah. And so I was always fascinated by it, just seeing people actually, they're floating down the river after a major flood or hurricane, and they're in their makeshift boats made of mattresses and plywood and whatever else they could put together with their personal belongings, and everything's floating down a river. Or I'd see people in front of their homes at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and the firefighters, which some of them were my friends, would put the fire out. And a lot of people go, "Oh, you need to go in the fire service." And I'm like, What do you mean? They just put the fire out,
right?
Put some water on it. And that's not really, my pain was, who's going to help them rebuild after the disaster? Like, these people lost everything. So the hope was the firefighter came in there, kicked the door in, put some water out. Great. And then they're like, "Oh, we took your fire out. See you later." And the client sitting on the people, the family in the pajamas in the street going, what now?
What do you want me to do with this wet furniture and, the damage that was caused by this and all my personal effects destroyed? What do you want me to do?
Yeah. And being very meticulous about everything that I do in life, I was that contractor that did excellent work. And I did a lot of also insurance work. And in the process, the insurance model started to change in America, where it was no longer about the policy holder. It became profits over people.
Right.
And in that process, I became public enemy number one because I started to challenge the insurance companies more and more to pay properly.
They don't like that.
No.
Did you notice that? Insurance companies are there to protect the fund, not necessarily to reimburse for damage that was done.
They're simply in the business of collecting premiums, not paying claims. And so I went head-to-head with them. I exposed them for fraud and collusion. I sued the Department of Insurance, got into a big lawsuit with them, and, had a hit piece written on me in 2005 or sometime after that. But I learned everything really fast about how selective prosecution works. I've also learned that once you're over the target and you're exposing big pharma or big insurance, they have very deep pockets and selective prosecution, and they have political power to just call whatever they want. And they could raid your house, they could come after you, they could shake the trees under a so-called investigation, which they know is nothing there.
Right.
But it's to cause fear, right? It's
fear,
that fear,
pain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bleed you out, tie you up in courts. Really nothing come out of it. So it was a beautiful experience. I mean, I lost everything at the time. I remember going to bed at night, my wife crying next to me, and me feeling absolutely like I failed as a husband, as a father. But in that thing was a great spiritual awakening. And I thank God for that lesson, because at that moment, I leaned so hard into my faith. I leaned so hard into the spiritual walk. And having an incredible woman, my wife. And at that time, it was a very challenging time because not only was I battling those lawsuits, our son was diagnosed with autism, who got vaccine injured. And it was very eye-opening. But we stepped up to the challenge. I was like, "Oh, this is not I'm not going down like this. I'm way too stubborn.
Right.
There's a fire inside me." And God was like, "Well, I can't use you yet. You're young. You got a chip on your shoulder. You're a little arrogant. You're going to get humbled. I'm going to put you through the fire. But through the fire, you're going to separate the body from the spirit, spiritually speaking. And you're going to learn what it means to be spirit-led. And you're going to learn to trust me. And you're going to learn to step into the unknown moment to moment to moment. And in there, you will grow and you will learn." And so our son started to respond very well to biomedical intervention, even though the doctor said he would never recover, right? He would just live an unfunctioning life, and
Right.
he would have to have full-time care for his rest of his life. My wife wrote the book Warrior Mom, A Mother's Journey in Healing Her Son with Autism by treating his underlying condition. So that became the Maha movement.
Wow.
We became good friends with Bobby Kennedy and went from being a hardcore Trump supporter to throwing all our support, bringing all our donors, and using all our resources to support Bobby in the Maha movement. Greatest man, I say, in this movement, because I know him personally, authentic as it comes, truly spirit-led. And so it was an honor to take him to the border. I took him to the border with the border ops, with a team of us, and a whole collective group for Midnight at the Border, great documentary. We worked with Charlie Kirk on a 6-part docuseries with our security and our drone team on border battles, a 6-part series.
Right.
So everything from disaster response to those type of responses. And in the whole movement, I was also down at January 5th and 6th with 33 paramedics about that, a board-up team, security team, and seeing how it was orchestrated and what was sold as propaganda to the American people. And even though our signals were being jammed, I saw how it was all orchestrated, beautifully put together. And now the information comes out. But when I was speaking out at the time, oh, you're out of your mind.
Conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, there isn't no conspiracy theories. It's like being day 2 in Maui or being in Hurricane Helene. We showed up right behind that hurricane with a team of paramedics, my helicopter pilot, and walking into one of the airports, and everybody was leaving. And I was like, okay, we were brought to this moment here.
Wow.
There's no instructions. I don't wait for permission. And people go, how did you know to go? I said, honestly, most times I don't know. I just know, move forward moment to moment and just trust God, because spiritually, when we showed up, all right, I'm a solutions guy. What do we need? We need a lot more helicopters. We need a lot more supplies. And God's like, I got this one. And my pilot put out a thing on the Wire Facebook social media group of independent helicopter pilots, LinkedIn group, and they were coming in from everywhere.
Wow.
Medical director walks in and says, I need your credentials. The guys drop all their credentials. Here's oxygen, here's insulin, here's IVs, go, go, go. Grab a tail number, grab an aircraft. Here's a pilot ready to go. Here's what you're doing. This is the mission. Elon Musk drops a bunch of Starlinks off. The satellite phone store, Tina Blanco, sat123.com, that group drops off a bunch of Starlinks and sat phones. They're like, here, just get them to the different LZs, because a lot of it was being delivered to the independent fire departments, rural fire departments. So we're dropping it because you could only land small aircraft there. And so that became the mission. Stood up Hickory Airport, stood up Foothill Airport, and then got a call from Samaritan's Purse. And Vetch there, 3-star general, amazing, spirit-led, an amazing man. And their whole team, their whole operations team.
They do a great job.
Yeah. And, to speak about that, here's an organization that I see in disaster zones going on 35 plus years now.
Right.
And I see the big, I'm not going to say their names, the big red this, the big red that, right? Yeah. And to me, it's disgusting, because in 2 weeks, they're gone. And I remember sometimes I would even talk to their volunteers. I'm like, yeah, we're here for the duration. And I said, slow your roll. You're here for 2 weeks. And they're like, no, we're not. I said, yeah. You're new, aren't you? Oh, yeah, I said, no, you're leaving in 2 weeks. Let me make it very clear to you. Once the cameras stop rolling and the donations start drying up, you guys are gone. Now, I know who's actually providing the food for you. That's Operation Barbecue. People should be donating to them, right?
Right.
And so what's beautiful about this new administration coming in at this time is this is no more Republican, Democrat. This is actually just, if you look around you, it's we the people movement. It's we the people come together. And these grassroots organizations, like what you see Charlie Kirk stood up here with Turning Point USA.
Right.
This is America move. This is America moving. These are people. And if you've ever had a voice, right? Now's the time to speak up. Now it's time to roll up the sleeves and actually do the work.
You know, they say that our government is not run by we the people. It's run by we the people that participate.
Yes.
And if we've been sitting back saying, I just want to be left alone, just leave me alone and I'll leave you alone, we're missing the whole point because we're here to serve. These are public servant positions. Looks like you've been stepping up to the plate on that.
Yeah, I'm just doing what God called me to do. Look, I went through what I went through to learn that I'm only here. The only purpose I have here is to serve. It's the greatest form of love. It's not. As soon as I make it about me, that's the ego mind.
Well, when Jesus was approached saying, which one of us will be the greatest in the kingdom? He said, the one that serves. And they said, ruh-roh. Okay. We're called to serve. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So how do you find some of the volunteers that do and work with your organization?
So because of how detail-oriented I am, it's challenging because some people will send out a resume and it looks very impressive. And a lot of the team members that are on the team, it's the chow house table. So in the chow house table, we say a lot of things. Sometimes if you don't have a thick skin or you don't know how to just have fun with it, you'll never make the team.
Right.
And many times when we're running out, even our security operations are some of the best in the country. We'll take them to the range, take them out for barbecues, just watch them operate. We'll take them on a deployment in a hurricane or a disaster zone where you don't have food, you don't have water, you're barely sleeping, your wheels are coming off on day 4, day 5. It's hot, it's humid, it's muggy. And then I see what they're made up of.
Right.
2 kinds of men, right? Or women. Those that are outward focused in service and those that start to internalize and make everything about them.
Right.
I always have to remind those people before I let them go. They have one shot. Take a look at yourself. Notice where you're operating from. Look around you. These people around here continue to suffer. They don't get to leave. You get to leave when this mission's done. You get to go home. So
when is
here,
it done? We don't know. Are you in
Yeah.
it for the long haul? Yeah.
And so where America's going at this time, what I think is really critical is everyone must get their house in order. Spiritually first, because Spirit will lead you in the times where your eyes will deceive you, your ears will deceive you, Spirit will discern what is truth and what is not. You cannot, having worked at border ops, you cannot let this many people into the country unvetted and not think that we have cells throughout this whole country ready to be activated for a time like this.
Right.
You can't have drones that are being operated right now with the government being sketchy. You can't have an H5N1 emergency declaration 2 days ago by California Governor Newsom, right?
Crazy.
All timing. So the thing is, let's create chaos and crisis for Trump and his cabinet for the next 4 years. You can't take a globalist movement that's been in the works for 50 years and allow them, if you think they're just going to back down, allow the thing to be unraveled? No. So prepare your house.
Agenda 2020 becomes Agenda 2025, becomes Agenda 2030, becomes Agenda 2040.
Yeah.
They're not giving up.
No.
Yeah. So how does the audience find out about you, about your organization?
Yeah, so you can go to srp24.com. That's all disaster management. There's also a disaster plan for your family as far as how you want to get communications, how to secure those communications from satellite, sat radios, secure phones. You also have our security division, which is Sabre Defense Team. That's sabreteam.com, S-A-B-R-E team.com. And that's all private security. So a lot of people right now are giving us calls on the security aspect of it for the inauguration because many of the high-level people we represent are headed that way. Those that are even taking groups are looking for, hey, I want a detail on us. You're welcome to call us. At the end of the day, I simply just get trained, get organized, reach out to your community, create a plan. If I was the opposite side, I would kill comms. I would go after communications, internet and phone to prevent any uprising.
All right, top 3 things. You are talking to our audience, giving them advice on how to prepare top 3 items that they need.
Top 3 items is create a community first and foremost, starting with you first. Where am I at? Because what's going to show up in your life is where you're at.
Okay.
That includes your family, then your community. Like you need to know who the mechanic is, who the gardener is, who can hunt, who's got, secure everything, right?
Yeah.
Second thing I would say is, what would be a second thing? I mean,
Communication.
Communication is part of your plan. Yeah, communication would be great. Supplies and what I call a secure location. So we have cold locations around the country already staged in place. That's got water, power, fuel, a place for people to go to. And that place that we have are for very specific individuals at this time. But everybody can create that cold, secure location within their community. If you live in the city, I tell you this, people don't understand. If the power goes out within 3 days, that city fails to exist. And after every hurricane that I've worked for 35 years, we bring in a city within a city. We bring in our own fuel cells.
Right.
We bring in our own mechanics to do tire repairs on the road. We set up an entire base camp, sanitation, food, everything. We're a standalone unit within that part. When people come back to their homes and there's no power, you know what they find? They find no food, no power, looters everywhere, and they're like, there's nothing for me here. I'm like, don't go into those zones.
Yeah.
You have no business there until you're able to put the infrastructure back in, which we so highly depend on. We're so vulnerable.
That's right. So if you had an outside place that you'd go to, out of the city, secure location, do you need to be underground? Do you need to
You don't need to be underground unless there's like obviously a nuclear threat or some level like that. But have a source of water there, critical, because without water, within a few days you're done.
Yeah.
Food, you could go probably 45 days on a good fast, right? And create a community of what that's going to look like. So everyone knows every one of my family members has a sat phone in a Faraday sleeve. All my team members have sat phones and a sat radio. Then my vendors, my emergency response vendors, which is what makes us so robust, also have sat phones. And then we have certain very high-level individuals in this country that are also on our sat radio.
So any recommendation on certain sat phones?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Inmarsat phones. I feel they're junk. I shouldn't say this probably out loud, but you only have a few satellite communications up there. And in every disaster zone, anybody with the Inmarsat can't get on for 15 minutes at some times.
Wow.
Iridium has the best network. So if you're looking to get a sat phone, I say get a sat phone that's an Iridium sat phone. Make sure it's charged. Make sure you program other sat phones into it. And you could call it regular phones too. Make sure you get a Faraday sleeve. Don't get the ones from China because they don't work. You can get you know which ones. There's a Escape Zone is made by Navy SEALs, which is a good one. Darkbags.com is another group that has great Faradays. I've tested them.
Yeah.
Because we found one phone in a Faraday sleeve that was ringing. And I'm like, how is that ringing? And so I pulled it up. I'm like, I've never seen this brand. Google it. It's made in China.
Wow.
So be careful what you buy. I don't tell people how to organize your basic food and water. You should know that.
You should. Yeah. But okay, give us the website one more time.
srp24.com. And on there's a plan, or you can email me, Steve at srp24.com. I'd be happy to send the link to you. It's or Sabre Team for security services and stuff like that. And we do a lot of schools, we do a lot of logistics centers, hospitals, and then of course a lot of private individuals. Many of them you know quite well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Steve Slepcevic, and check out Be Prepared. You never know what can happen, but I'll tell you what, we as Americans just expect certain things, but if you've traveled internationally at all, you know that the rest of the world doesn't live like this. So always be prepared. Food, water, communication, good community around you, and be prepared, be ready. Thank you so much, Stephen, for coming by. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us here at America Fest 2024. I'm Ray Michaels, and until next time, we'll see you real soon.